Szanowni Państwo.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to ask you to switch off or turn to mute your phones. We're slightly delayed in beginning of today's meeting and workshop. We're very satisfied that you're with us. Thank you for accepting our invitation, be it online or direct presence, which is actually streamed in Polish and English. I represent the Market Information Office of GAZ-System, and I will have the pleasure of moderating this meeting. We will invite the Vice President of GAZ-System, Marcin Krapkowski, to officially open the session. Welcome, my name is Marcin Krapkowski. I'd like to welcome all of you warmly, and particularly addressing our adding in other languages for the benefit of our guests. The most difficult one was the last. Above all, I'd like to welcome you on behalf of the board at these workshops focused on the gas market. This is a regular event, what we have referred to as GAZ-SYSTEM Forum. This meeting takes place on the final day of the gas year 2022, or 21 rather, 22. And like to express my appreciation for your cooperation in this difficult and very challenging year. At the same time, I'd like to discuss the upcoming year or beginning year that starts tomorrow 6 a.m. sharp. I'd like to thank you for your presence here in the hall, but also those who are watching us through the streaming online. Thank you for your attendance, high attendance. That is a message to us that organizing of these meetings has deep sense. I'd like to welcome representatives of our clients, corporates that use our services, transmission services, connection services. We also welcome representatives of the companies that represent our sector, including representative of the Ministry of Environment and Climate, representative of Ministry of Technology and SOC, Energy Regulatory Office representative, and all of you as you are here. Thank you for participating and actually co-authoring this meeting, because that alone will ensure its sense. I'm thinking deeply about what can be said today in the unique situation for the gas market. And I'd like to say something that has a deeper meaning. We find ourselves in a situation where we're discussing achievements, in other words, what has happened to date, but also looking into the future, what we need to do. Looking at what we've achieved, you know perfectly well that over the past years, we have implemented an unprecedented capital investment program in terms of the company as well as country and systems. We've run a number of investments simultaneously. These CapEx efforts were challenging and demanding on high, well-stepped schedule with deadlines that we needed to meet. And we did succeed in doing that through your engagement, through the national administration, engagement of the staff, employees. I am truly proud of being part of the family that we form in GAZ-System. It is so clear today that the effort, the time put in, the effort of resources, financial and human resources that we needed to put in. We needed to develop competences in areas where we lacked skills. I'm referring here to offshore particularly. And yet we are sitting in a warm room is a proof in a sense that we have succeeded. The natural gas blackmail of Gazprom started at a point when transmission of gas was limited through the Yamal pipeline. Manipulations at the gas market in the context of the Western European gas storage facilities filled in led us, even before the Ukraine invasion of Ukraine, led us to a situation where we needed to reorganize ourselves anew. The uncertainties for the market, for the states, is unprecedented, and that translates into entire market, including ourselves. And in this context, let me stress this, in spite of being where we are managing because of the investments, and the transmission of natural gas in Poland is by no means threatened, at risk. And I personally am proud of it, and we can all be proud of it. I'd like to also add that the skills and competences which we developed and acquired through the intense CapEx program, we are already using and will be using in the upcoming CapEx investments. And we continue to push for these investments because in addition to what we've done, the interconnection point with Lithuania, Slovakia, or interconnectors with Denmark under the Baltic Pipe project. And we clearly see that the first mentioned investment, which was actually commissioned beginning this year, in the course of this year, the Poland-Lithuania, pardon me, and we are awaiting Slovakia to be commissioned any day. Before us floating terminal in Gdańsk area, expansion of strategic caverns, underground storage, and interconnectors we've developed will be able to assist us in meeting the future. And ahead of us is year 2022, 2023. This gas year will be full of challenges, and we do hope that the presentations that you will see, as well as off-the-record discussions we will have proven to you that we have been preparing and continue to prepare well for the challenges. Finally, I'd like to express on behalf of myself and my entire team, the entire workforce of GAZ-System for the incredible effort in the implementation of projects and the day-to-day efforts as well. And I will stress that I am truly proud of working with you. Thank you for preparation of this forum, and I invite you all to discussion and collaboration, because thanks to that we are safer than we have ever were looking back in the medium term. So thank you very much for meeting and wishing fruitful deliberations further. Thank you.
Panie prezesie.
Mr. President, thank you for these words and your presence throughout the conference. The President mentioned about the main achievements and challenges that we have been facing over the past 12 years of the gas year, about the main key projects that we've implemented over the 12 months. We will be listening to Mr. Putzel to present us with these key efforts. Thank you very much. Let me start by saying that we are happy that we're meeting in these strange and difficult and out of ordinary times, because taking into account the war at our eastern border and pandemic, we are happy that we are meeting and summarizing the past year. So let me just run through what has happened, what was ahead of us, that is coming to a close today. First, key events. In October of last year, we were signatories of Polish hydrogen agreement. We treat this as an opportunity, new area for development. In the same month of October, we added with the the golden well at the interconnection between Poland and Lithuania. November, we finished the gas link Gostorzyn-Wronów, which helps us distribute the gas in central and eastern Poland. In November also, we started open season procedure for FSRU phase 1 terminal, and this is important from the energy security of that country. In December 2021, we published the instruction for the LNG terminal in Świnoujście, and we completed the Strachocin-Pogórska Wola section of the pipeline in eastern Poland, of critical importance from the standpoint of north-south corridor. January brought consultations about the incremental capabilities, which improved. This deals with the throughput between Poland and Czech, Polish and Ukrainian pipes systems. And of course, the world in February, the gas world that we knew until then changed dramatically. All and any probable and anticipated events had to be suspended because we need to deal with the new surprising reality. March is the consultations on the connection system with our Danish partner, and in April we've moved with the compressor station in Kędzierzyn-Koźle, and another important date is the stoppage of eastern natural gas coming. In May we've moved with the Poland-Lithuania interconnection point and SGT in the same month. In June, the Energy Regulatory Office President approved tariffs for the coming year. In July, annual products were auctioned, where throughput in the new interconnection points with Denmark, Lithuania and Slovakia were opened. In June, the president of the Energy Regulatory Office approved the tariffs for gas fuel, and we consulted changes in design of ESP. In August, we've completed a build-out of the interconnector between Poland and Slovakia, and we received approval of the regulator on the Polish link of SGT. In September, we commenced work on the pipeline Oświęcim-Tworzeń link, and then we have been able to, this month also, to pump gas into the Baltic pipe, and today we are coming to a close of the year.
New infrastructure of gas system means new possibilities. Here, my colleague, Mr. Director Sławomir, is about to tell you more about those connections. I am only going to mention them shortly. Well, of course, it's Baltic pipe, a connection with Slovakia in Rvrava, a corridor north-south, Santaka connection with Lithuania, and of course, an ongoing extension of LNG terminal, which we are going to speak about more today. When it comes to gas dispersion as of 27th of April, as I said, well, you have to bear in mind that the Polish gas reality has changed drastically. Gas is no longer pumped from the east, and we, as of the 1st of January, are not going to offer capacity on Kondratki, Wysokoje and Tetierowka points. I want to underline one more thing. Our clients have not experienced at all the change of direction of the gas flow and deliveries. There were no interruptions. The graph which we are showing shows how we have changed the flow of gas. So the direction is no longer from the east. Right now the main point is terminal of LNG terminal. Soon we are going to start with Baltic pipe, and the country is being safe and secure. An important information regards, of course, our activities related to transit gas system. We have obtained a decision of assigning the role of operator, and what is important is that because of the fact that there will be no flow of gas from the east, the contract is not covering with its scope the full coverage, and the pumping stations were excluded. It wouldn't be technically justified because of the fact that gas is transferred from the west. There is no justification to burden with additional costs the people on the market. Implementation of key investments. Well, this map shows how much we have managed in the last 2 years or 3 years to achieve. Of course, those are interconnectors, which I mentioned with Lithuania, Slovakia. It is Baltic pipe. Those are the key pumping stations, such as Golenów, Gostorzyn, and Kędzierzyn. That all makes it fluent how we are changing directions of gas flow in Poland. Terminal. As we can see, it gained a huge meaning right now. It was treated as diversification, as alternative source of energy. Right now, this is the main and key point of gas entering our country. We can see it in the numbers. In 2021, we have received 35 deliveries, and up till now, 40. We are forecasting 58 till the end of the year. This is one of the most efficient and the most used terminals in Europe. When it comes to loading cisterns, we are forecasting 5,440, and this is natural when it comes to the prices of gas. And what you are all observing, the market is slowing down. And when it comes to the regasification, we can see a significant increase too, from 3.5 billion to over 5.8. Now, the activities related to connecting to network. Here, the cooperation with our clients. How is it being done? Of course, we have two types of clients, as you know, in the Group A and in the Group C. The conditions of granting conditions, it's respectively 60 and 90 days. We are aiming to have as short deadlines as possible, but I think that our clients have no reason to complain. We are speeding up the process as much as we can, and the exchange of information is very fluent. When it comes to connectors, right now we are implementing 20 projects, and we are aiming and forecasting to increase the power by 2030 to over 2 billion cubic meters per hour. I am going to speak more about forecasts in the second part of my intervention, when we will be presenting our outlook at the future. But right now, I wanted to show you that we are looking at the reality in the optimistic light. So the connections to Group A5 and Group C74 for SGT6, I'm going to elaborate on that further, and issued information at regarding connection 5. 17 contracts, annexes 37, 3 sessions that happens to implemented connections 22. Right now, when it comes to contracts for connection, we are implementing 62 contracts and 7 memorandums on connecting. When it comes to important projects which we are implementing right now, it's EC Technica. It's a combination of plants. It's a cogeneration from Wrocław. It is, of course, also Gryfino, where we are going to implement the project by the end of third and maybe between third and fourth quarter of the next year. This is a very important source which is being created in Poland. We are having very high hopes regarding this project. Other important connections. We have a contract with Cleveren Holding in Ursus, close to Warsaw, and ZEPAK for Adamów plant. Yesterday I had an opportunity to discuss it with a member of board from ZEPAK. It is a very critical and important project to them. When it comes to something I've mentioned, when it comes to connecting to transit gas pipes, even though the gas is not being pumped from the east through the pipe, it is worth to use it. Thanks to connecting in Zambrów, Ciechanów, Włocławek, Wydartowo, Długa, Głosina and Lwówek, we are having 6 locations, and it will make it much smoother to transport gas around the country, which is for sure going to make an impact, beneficial impact to all the users of the market. So here we are having high hopes related to this sector, and the process is supposed to finish around 2026-27. What about the scope of transfer contracts? Here are some stats. We have 134 contracts on transition with OSDs. We have 49 contracts with transmission gas networks, and 63 subjects up till now. We have finished the procedure of giving the ability of capacity for the 2022-2023, 34 subjects issued, in total 44 applications for 911 points, and we observed that the level of interest is similar to the last year. Of course, there are certain shifts, and you as clients know very well by yourselves, and you can experience it yourselves, but globally the level is very similar to last year. When it comes to changes in regulations, as of 1st of September this year, the duties related to concessions changed, and all the subjects have to have at the disposal. There is no longer any favorable treating for those who have turnover up to 100,000 euro. Right now, those who do not have concession can still function till the end of March 2023. I am speaking about that because it's a change from the point of view of a whole year. What's also important to mention when it comes to yearly capacity, because we've been observing this year behaviors of our clients, and we observed that some of them has not decided to order as big quantities, because they were supposing they will be ordering in shorter periods. We are drawing your attention to the risk that when the situation on the market is going to stabilize, then you may not regain the capacity you've once lost. So we are paying your attention to this.
Podsumowanie aukcji, tak jak mówiłem.
Looking at auctions and summaries of those, we started auctions for new points, thanks to interconnectors with Slovakia, Lithuania and Denmark, and we are pleasantly surprised by what has been happening. With Lithuania particularly, where that has become a very active point of interconnection from our perspective, at least. Now, cooperation with yourselves, clients, your takeoff. Year on year, we conduct a customer satisfaction survey. My assessment is that today you perceive us at B+, maybe it's A-, as some of the board say. That's happily what we have, but we want this to be a continuing upward curve. What do we do to ensure that you perceive us well, and it's that we deliver on time and of appropriate quality, but also that it be a sort of friendly collaboration. Colleagues from that serve our customers organize webinars on regular basis, and we have we've held a number of these in the course of the past year, specifically focusing on the SWE, the information exchange and operation of gas terminals, and then discussions about the cutbacks plan, because everyone has been very intensely interested in this and participating in the webinars. Also, there was a webinar about tariffs and rules of funding and connection to our network. I encourage you, we have presentations of these webinars available on our website. If you did not participate in the past, please revisit that. Come and find answers to your questions there. We are naturally open to respond to you directly. Finally, information about the Gas Inside Information Platform, GIIP. This is the obligation vis-à-vis the clients about the internal information, where customers are required to provide information on certified platform, and we offer such a platform, such a tool for that publication, and we have seen successful expansion of cooperation with you in this area. So those who have not had the opportunity of using that tool, we can present it to you, discuss it with you. So that's a handful of the key pieces of information from this year of gas. Director, thank you so much for presenting to us the summary of our collaboration with you and what had happened in the course of this year. This is a great moment to ask questions about what you might have, the questions you might have to Director. And I will be handing microphone to you. We want all of your questions to be heard well, because we're streaming this, so that all of our participants can participate that way. So 1, 2, 3 questions we will allow from the audience. Please feel free to do so.
Bardzo proszę.
Dzień dobry.
Hello. Having heard your presentation, particularly about the expansion of responsibility for SGT propagation, the gas system, my question is, considering the fact, as you said, prospects are that the transit from Russia, from eastern direction, will not be coming back, so we need to integrate ourselves in the gas systems infrastructure, and to take over from Europolgas company in this respect. We operate as a transit pipe operator, so GAZ-SYSTEM is responsible for flow of gas in this pipe. Under the heading of integration, as I said, we have done a number of things, such as the connection points for 6 Zambrów, Ciechanów, Drugi Goślin, Lwówek, Wydartów, which simply means that Polish system is going to be able to use the infrastructure of gas flow or throughput, which will, of course, be reflected in costs, but then improvement in the efficiency of the system. So we are building additional block to use the infrastructure, existing infrastructure, as best as possible. On the management and business side, that still remains with Europolgas. Yes, the Europolgas still a member, owner of the infrastructure. So we perform under contract functions, but Europolgas, as Ministry of Internal Affairs and Administration has notified us yesterday, the assets of Gazprom, including shares in Europolgas, have been put on hold, which we expect that performance of ownership rights will not be exercised otherwise than it is now. Thank you. Any further questions to the President? I am, of course, available in the course of our coffee break. Myself, my entire team are at your disposal to respond to your specific questions. Director, thank you so much for this first but not the final presentation coming from you today. Now I have the pleasure of inviting the next speaker, our first guest from outside the gas system, who accepted our invitation. On behalf of Ministry of Climate and Environment, he will discuss for us what is happening on the market. Mr. Adam Gwiazdowski, welcome, we invite you. He is the head of gas in the Electro-Energy and Gas Department of Ministry of Climate and Environment. Thank you so much. Thank you, organizers, for inviting the Ministry to participate in this very interesting and useful conference. And naturally, I thank not only for the invitation itself, but also for the hard work you have been performing in the course of the past gas year and previous years as well. Because as President has mentioned and described in detail the various activities and tasks over the medium term and currently, they've done a lot to prepare ourselves in response to what has happened in the course of the year, things that no one expected to happen. One way or another, we've undertaken preparations, and through GAZ-SYSTEM, among others, we were successful in being ready for the events that actually occurred. So that's important comment at the beginning. I'd like to describe to you very briefly, give you a big picture without going into detail as to how we see the situation from Ministry's vantage point, what we see happening within the Eurozone, and what we also see as a current situation. We agreed with the organizers that we will call this sector of gas sector in the unstable market conditions as a title. My additional original title was the gas system at the time of crisis, but that sounded too alarming. We are dealing with a crisis, but that's a character that is unprecedented historically, clearly. Which is why let us start with safety or system security. When we look at storage, the fact that we are successful in maintaining gas extraction at stable level, that's another important point to cover our demand. As we all know, through the various investments we've undertaken or you've undertaken, we were successful in ensuring alternative sources of delivery, gas delivery. Moving further, this is we've used the slide of gas system. As you've seen it already, I just mentioned that through the investments that have been undertaken over the past number of years that required long-term capex work, this is bringing us results because terminal is operating very effectively in terms of LNG terminal and ensuring security of our system. We are moving with Baltic Pipe on time, extremely important, of key importance, and the other alternative delivery routes are marked out here as well. And this is why, among other things, why we were successful in protecting ourselves against the, or preparing ourselves for this winter. As you all know, we were able to fill our gas storage facilities 100%. What I would underscore are the things that are, as a set of companies and Polish state can be proud of. This slide actually presents as to the filling of the underground storage over the past years. The red curve is the level of this year. Up to a certain moment, we went standard way, but at the end of February, after the Russia's invasion of Ukraine, full-fledged actually invasion, this trajectory has changed and was stepped up in terms of filling, and we were able to fill up our caverns and other storage facilities up to their full capacity earlier than anyone else actually. Another side of the same coin is that we are thinking about security, and because of the work of GAZ-SYSTEM primarily, but also other entities, we are in a position where we have everything under control. We also understand that the other side of the coin is the demand side, not the supply side alone. And usage has been declining. As a rule, of course, this is positive because we're saving gas, and as a result, the situation is more controllable, better for us. But we also realize that the conservation effect is driven by the price impulses, and we at the last year we were below the medium-term averages in prices. 2021, as you can see, but the trend had been similar in the previous year. From beginning of the gas year, we were below usage slightly, but in the summertime, starting from July, in fact, the usage started to actually diverge from the trajectory. We are yet to see how the price trends will where they will take us, but we do see substantial decline in use.
Well, here we got to the topic of prices. Well, we have done a lot of work. The whole administration, gas system, we have made efforts to ensure security, but Well, as everyone can see, it's an obviously important topic. The problem lies in prices. It's not only Polish problem. It is in general European problem. We are speaking today only about gas market, but we all know that the situation is interconnected, and electricity in Poland and even to a bigger extent in other member states of European Union are very high prices. In Poland, the prices are high and they are rising drastically, but the average prices on the European market are higher, so relatively low prices are in Poland. But of course, we have to bear in mind that it is determined by the prices of gas, because at the European market, units that are generating electricity from gas are shaping the prices, to say it shortly. The situation in the stock market, in TTF or other stocks, where the gas prices and what we observe this year is extending our expectations and the fears we've had a year ago. Those fluctuations are very high, and of course the level of increases and the level of peaks is overwhelming at moments. Of course, we can see, as we've the reasons are geopolitical. The majority of what's happening at the stock can be explained by the Russia's behavior. So the head market is influenced by Russia. And right now, the answers, what do we do? Well, this slide is not of the biggest quality when it comes to the art of creating slides in PowerPoint, but I thought that it reflects very well our activities at the ministry this year, which means that maybe we don't have, well, when we bear in mind the number of legislative tasks we have to perform, we not always have the time to invest into making things pretty, but there is a lot of content behind it. So this year we have indeed introduced plenty of acts, and some of them are still being created and are going to be established soon. We are going to intend to limit the impact of the situation of prices for the final households. So here we are speaking of lowering taxes, introducing benefits and other shielding measures. There is a question of extending tariffs that we've mentioned on the previous slide. We are extending them for households to 2027. When it comes to the growth of gas prices, we are going to, the extension of tariffs was connected with introducing a compensating mechanism for energy providing enterprises. There is also an issue of support for those who are warming up their houses with pellet and coal and stuff. Of course, I'm saying it on the margin because that's not the topic of today's meeting. But the main goal is fulfilled. We want to support households in a complex way so that they can survive the winter, to put it in simple and direct words. There are also solutions that the Ministry of Development and Technology has been announcing. I'm not going to go into detail because it's another ministry, so I do not know the details. And now, at the end, I would like to shortly speak about European Union and what's happening there. EU is functioning in crisis emergency mode too. We observe a lot of legislative activity, which adds even more challenges to all of us. I think that when it comes to most important issues, what was broadly commented was the
dobrowolny cel 15.
was the act regarding reduce of gas usage, which can be converted into obligatory with the decision of the European Council. But we observe the trends, which I showed a couple of slides ago, is that reduction by 15%. We are fulfilling this requirement out of our goodwill. Another important obligation imposed on member states by the European Union is the regulation of the European Parliament and the Council regarding transferring good practices, Polish best practices, to the European market. We are very happy with this regulation because we are sure it is going to support the long term, and it's going to have a long-term impact on prices. We are aware of the fact that the crisis in prices started last year when Gazprom stopped to fill up their storages. Right now, the topic for today, because right now we are having the meeting of a council in Energy Council in Brussels. It is a very warm discussion, plenty of ideas which are circulating right now. Those ideas regard introducing a form of a limit to prices in the European Union. We are counting on European Commission, but this is a topic which is being discussed right now, and it is going to be discussed in the days to come. Of course, it is a topic which is significant when it comes to the situation in the market. I'm underlining once again, it requires special measures. It's a very difficult process in implementation, so those talks are very interesting. Another idea of EU, which is only at the initial stage, is joint purchase of LNG. Here the idea is not yet crystal clear. We cannot assess it fully, but there is an idea which seems interesting. So, thank you very much for your kind attention, and I have still 30 seconds left. So I want to say on top of that is that this year shows a situation where we are facing a crisis which has no precedence and is a historical event, and we are trying to use it and we are trying to benefit on it, introducing certain solutions. Some of them are, of course, emergency procedures and temporary procedures, but some of them are going to remain and be a good best practice for future. For example, the requirement of filling up the gas storages in 90%. So we are at the same time extinguishing fires, and at the same time we are building up a couple of floors on top of that and renovating that. So it is a challenge, but in cooperation with all the actors, I hope we are going to manage the task. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you very much, Adam, for presenting us the summary of ministries and activity and activity of the EU instruments. We are thanking you also very much for such a positive assessment of our undertakings in this difficult time. Right now we have still time for one, maybe two questions, because as Adam said, we are running out of time and the next presentation is about to be presented. Should someone have a question, please introduce yourself and ask the question to the mic. Hello, Dominik Skokowski. I have a question. At the list of elements which of projects which ministry is undertaking when it comes to managing the crisis, there were such elements as some dotations and tax reliefs, discounts. So my question is regarding an element that I haven't seen on the list. There is no instrument that would limit the demand. So is the ministry planning such a solution? If not, then why? And could you tell us something more about it? Indeed, I think that at the moment when we were designing the solutions, I was not taking the direct part in most of them, but to put it in general, when it comes to most of the solutions, when designing them, the first and basic goal we had was to introduce them quickly and to introduce them easily, because it is an emergent situation which requires because, when we're speaking about legislation and introducing programs which are at amounts of billions, then we need to act immediately. So that was the main goal. But when it comes to questions of demand and supply, then indeed we do observe that we could approach it from this angle too, and we could think of certain solutions. Here, I don't want to go into details because those are solutions which are still being digested, if I may say so. But when we speak of acts to come that would be defining the price on the energy market, as far as I'm concerned, there are also certain mechanisms taken into account which would be an incentive to limiting the use. We will analyze such solutions in the nearest legislations to come. Well, of course, those that are regarding gas market. We do see the need to limit the demand and to relate to this issue. This kind of solutions are already provided in some acts from the previous legislation, so it's not completely forgotten. But, well, so the first goal, once again, was to introduce it easily and quickly, and the need for supporting households and consumers who from one day to another became in a very difficult situation. So that was the basis. But we, of course, are trying to think of creating incentives to use less. So thank you. Thank you very much for your intervention and answer. Okay, one last question. Can you please pass the microphone to the gentleman who wants to ask the question? Good morning, Adam Cała speaking. Have you conducted any analysis related to risks and the likelihood of introducing limitations to protect individual customers in the winter time? Have you conducted a research and analysis? Well, yes, of course. It is a topic which we are analyzing on an ongoing basis, and there is a need of introducing limitations that is which could be directly motivated by small amount of gas. And right now our basic worry is to ensure the appropriate amount of gas in the system, and we are devoted to it on a daily basis. So together with GAZ-SYSTEM, we are analyzing the situation on a regular basis. So yes, to answer your question, we are analyzing. But when it comes to what you mentioned about limitations to protect households and customers, the nature of limitations, as it is said in the regulation on limitations, the households are protected and they will not be covered with the limitations. But answering the other question you've asked or you implied, we do not foresee right now, and we think it would be extremely unlucky. It's extremely unlikely to introduce limitations. The situation, thanks to investments that were done, and thanks to the storages, the situation is under control. So we are not foreseeing such a solution. Thank you very much for your presentation, for your answers. Thank you very much for taking the floor.
Obecna trudna sytuacja rynkowa.
Today's difficult market situation is a challenge for us all, which is why in the course of this workshop we decided to devote a substantial amount of time on that topic, and which is why now discussing the measures to ensure security of deliveries, we'd like to discuss from the regulator's perspective. And Ms. Joanna Buzar, the head of the Gas Market Development Department of the Energy Regulatory Office, accepted our invitation to this session. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the invitation. This has been a regular meeting, this Gas System Forum, and I've had the opportunity of participating and pleasure of participating in this, and I consider this a perfect platform for sharing information with market participants about what is happening, about the actions and activities undertaken by the GAZ-SYSTEM company in its relations with the market participants. Looking at my presentation today, I'd like to start by pointing to the extraordinary situation, the energy crisis, the gas crisis that has occurred in Europe. Much has been said about it, so I will limit myself to just some key messages in this respect, and to point your attention to the fact or to the opinion of the regulator in its key aspects in view of the crisis situation. As we know, Russia's invasion of Ukraine has built up the crisis, has changed the situation rapidly. Firstly, we've had curtailing, but then complete ceasing of deliveries has occurred from the eastern direction. I hope we can show this on the screen, the next slide of the presentation. In addition to that, we've seen, this has driven increase in prices, both European market and the Polish market itself, with the historical levels being reached. Thankfully, actions unplanned and then undertaken, impellent, which related to diversification of sources of delivery, where to move away from reliance on the Yambal contract, of a decision based on decision of not extending that contract onwards. This was prepared by the predecessors that have prepared the Polish system for the limitation of deliveries from the eastern direction. But in addition to the new interconnectors, we've built out the national infrastructure, new corridors having been put in place, and we also have undertaken seen actions on the part of the POGC, Polish Oil and Gas Company, that ensures deliveries of gas. We have further strengthening coming from or intensification of built out and improving effectiveness of the gas storage facilities. And because of the current situation, these actions need to be continued in order to increase capacities of these storage facilities, will have added substantially to our energy security in gas. Of course, there was an immediate response to substantial peak in prices, and this is extraordinary, and at least we have ensured acceptable price levels for the final users, which is very important. We the president of URI monitors the situation, not just in Poland, but also on the European markets. In this slide shows a situation from last week, where the level of deliveries from the Eastern Corridor has declined to 10% overall, whereas deliveries, these had been replaced partially by LNG deliveries, but the following slide shows there has been also a decline in demand, or reduction in demand, I should say. When we talk about the crisis, we are referring to substantial price increases, historically high levels achieved, and the ministry has pointed to the fact that this was response of the market, responding to the geopolitical changes, the use of, in a sense, these gas deliveries as a weapon, weaponizing gas delivering, and these hold-ups in deliveries have led to the peaks that you could see here. There are periods where this gas has been replaced from other sources, such as increased deliveries of LNG to Europe, including Poland, of course. That stabilizes the situation, but then there is a new piece of news that reverses the trend that looked stabilizing for a while. From this week, we know that the prices of September have suddenly increased again because of the closing and the damage on the Nord Stream 1 and 2. And because of the crisis that we are observing today, I'd like to point you to a number of key elements that are important from the perspective of us as regulator in terms of behavior that would ensure security now, but not only now, but in the future as well. Looking at the compensation system that has been mentioned by the ministry, this is indeed a good tool that is protecting household users. The regulation, the act of law that introduced that instrument, this included the definition of the key public institutions that are engaged, and the ministry intends to use that tool also in the following year, and we believe this is of key importance. Now, even though the rules are being extended, this possibility of approving tariffs for household users towards 2027 does not necessarily guarantee that the prices would remain at stable levels, because 90% of costs of the gas trade companies are, of course, natural gas trading. The gas at POGC of last year as the maximum ceiling of prices will be used. The companies could offer lower prices, but if they go beyond that ceiling, possibility of obtaining compensation has been created. Hence, the regulator appealing for maintaining that solution for the next year. And that could go a long way to hoping to slow down and to reverse the crisis situation. Looking at the network companies and their production, we've heard about multi-year tariffs as a possible remedy to stabilizing prices and ensuring they are can be anticipated. The regulator sees that in step with implementation of price stability guarantee instrument, where forecasts do not turn out to be right, particularly on the revenue side, that is justified, long-term tariffs, as the annual tariffs, one-year tariffs, will have uncertainties because there are many factors, many variables to take into account based on what has happened and what is not yet happened, which is why forecasting under current situation is really burdened with a great degree of risk and of error under the economic realities of today. So the risk here is so important. The regulatory account, had it not been introduced, the risk that the company sees when in undertaking, in estimating correctly the price evolution, might be tempted to transfer it to the users. So the energy companies are protected thereby. We postulate and suggest that such a regulatory contract involved in the operation of the system be introduced, particularly since in the current situation that's going to guarantee stability of their regular operation. Now, looking at the transformation, we understand that transformation was announced by the Commission. We have the green regime, and because of the current structure of European market, we need to revisit and restructure the key assumptions of the strategy of reaching the climate objectives so that we actually account for the current situation, which includes a substantial dependence in energy production on hard coal, particularly, and the green transformation as promoted by Poland with the use of gas as the replacement and tool for a smooth transfer or transformation into greener energy. This needs to be revisited because of the situation on the gas market, and to include that in the mix. The one remedy under the current situation, the crisis situation, both domestically and at European market, due to accessibility of gas and the prices of gas, is ultimately something that needs to be reckoned with in terms of the mix. About 20 billion cubic meters of usage that we currently have. This is going to go to 37.5 in 2026, with natural gas of 8 billion. Additionally, would stabilize the market, particularly looking at the company's plans that need to be reworked, considering the possibility of use of biogas, using it in transport. There might be a closed distribution networks for the biogas, also feeding the systems with appropriate systems so that appropriate quality of that gas be pumped into the system, and of course liquefying of that gas and pumping that. The distribution of gas could be optimal solution, so that this gas is not transported on road at extended distances. In other words, employment of various additional aid instruments that could reduce costs on the producer side, generator side, and the distributions. But that requires legislative decision making to be considered to create incentives for generation of biogas and biomethane. To sum up, coming close to summing up, all of the recommendations of the regulators are being published on ongoing basis. One of the locations where the president of URI presents recommendations as to legislative changes is the report from operation of the president of the Energy Regulatory Office. In other words, there we point to monitoring of the realities and recommendations for new legislation. What is important is that is the increase and introduction of instruments that can protect the particularly sensitive users, so that we do not this doesn't lead to impoverishment of the society, and the need to focus on further build out of the storage capacities, because the existing state which ensures security there may be temporary indeed, because and that hence the need for expansion of these facilities. Also, strengthening of the role and tasks of the systems operator is also in order. Some of these tasks are currently included in the existing legislation, such as preparation of the transmission system operator, development of expansion plans. The same requirement would be for the storage system operator to ensure access of the market to these storage facilities. Let me close at that. Thank you very much. Joanna, thank you.
Bardzo dziękujemy.
Thank you for that presentation and for sharing with us the arguments of the regulator in terms of actions to be undertaken to improve security of the system and changes in the mix. We are slightly in delay, but the forum will allow one or two questions. This is the perfect moment to address that to Madam. And of course, coffee break is another opportunity. No questions? I think let's put it for off until the coffee break. So once again, thank you very much, Madam Director.
Rynku energii.
Current crisis on the natural gas market is a consequence of the invasion of Russia on Ukrainian territory. Despite for those severely difficult conditions, the operator of gas system transmission in Ukraine is trying to ensure the stable gas provision. Right now, regarding all the challenges which he is facing, Mr. Paweł Stańczak is going to tell us about. The Deputy Director of the Gas TSO of Ukraine. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation, and thank you much for being with us today in Warsaw. We are inviting you to the stage right now. I am very happy that I can be today here with you. I begin with the words of a song in Ukrainian. It's a lot of music, and the only words which they say is good evening, we come from Ukraine. Even though we are in a crisis situation, we don't feel responsible for the crisis. So it is very important that despite for everything, the TSO of Ukraine ensures stable gas transportation. It would be an over-exaggeration to say it functions normally, but in the light of clients, it is normal from their perspective. Unfortunately, we are being deprived of clients because some of them were completely destroyed and have no possibility of receiving gas. Sometimes they are just limiting. Of course, the price of gas is important and significant, so some clients are simply turning off the production. But still, we still are transporting gas from Russia to Europe. We want to be seen as a partner who is reliable, and should there be a gas transfer from the border with Russia, then the gas is going to be transferred to the border with European Union. Currently, gas is being transported in smaller volumes than it used to be before. But it's not because of the fact that it was our decision. As a result of the events which occurred at Novopskov, this is a big node which up till now was functioning in the scope of occupied territory, and unfortunately gas that was transferred was overtaken there, and it was transferred to occupied territories. For past 7 years we didn't have temporal occupation, and lately it has started. So this is the reason why we have noted that it's force majeure, and the effect was that Gazprom took a one-sided decision that they are decreasing the gas volume, even though we suggested another point, because Novopskot is a node, and a point where we were receiving gas from Russia was a point which has been functioning up till now, but we are moving it to another one, which is fully under our control. It's in Sudzha. There we are able to receive the same amount, or maybe even bigger amount. We will see it in the slides to come. But the decision was one-sided to decrease. Therefore, we are transporting less. It's around 40 million per hour, per 24 hours. Sorry. We believe that we are an important hub, an important node. It is our ambition to remain such a hub. Here you can see the paths, how the gas can be delivered to Ukraine. Ukraine is producing right now almost as much gas as it uses. But normally when the industry works and the trains are not destroyed, and the territory is not destroyed, then it's around 1 million more. So the production is 18 billion and the use is around 20. And it used to be around 30. Therefore, maybe today, it is not the best market where you can sell a lot of gas, but it is possible to locate gas in Ukraine too. And in the future, for sure, it will be. So those are the paths how gas can be pumped to Ukraine if we wouldn't be taking into account the path which was existing up till now, meaning the deliveries from Russia. Some of the paths were already tested out by our clients, by you. They work, they function. We've had a test transportation from Świnoujście to Ukraine. There was one from Greece, and I think from others too. I am not aware of everything For us, it's just nominations and non-allocations, but it indeed has been happening. So we are a market where it's worth to locate transfers, and here I'm speaking to potential clients. It's worth to think of sale or purchase of gas. We want to say that the hub is also important from the point of view, for the reason that in Ukraine we have plenty of storages, so the storage space in Ukraine is big. Before the meeting with you, I spoke to a colleague who is responsible for storing gas in Ukraine. It's a separate operator in the group which we used to form part of. It is a group called Naftogaz. It is a separate operator with an own tariff. He entitled me to tell you that every gas which will be located in Ukrainian storages, despite for war and difficult conditions, is going to be re-exported, and there are no limits to it. We have temporal limitations when it comes to export, but no limitations for re-export. And I think that this is how it's going to remain. As I said at the beginning, and this is the main message I want to give you today, we want to be a partner who is reliable and who builds security, energy security in this part of Europe. We have plenty of facilitating options in our system of storages. We have a special tariff from Europe to the storage and back. It's called short haul. It is preferable when compared to other transits or of gas in Ukraine. There's also a system, custom warehouse, which was created by the operator of storages. So this is a regime in which for years you can be free of customs duties for storing the gas. If you decide on selling the gas in Ukraine, then you have to pay customs, and if the warehouse gives back the gas through EU to the EU member states, then you are not paying customs, only paying services for storage. We also have ambitions and realistic needs to support and facilitate green energy transition. We are in short term able to accept the transfer system. Of course, we are aware of the fact that at first it's going to happen in the distribution centers, but we are ready to accept biomethane, and we have changed specifications of gas in order to be able to accept biomethane when the quality of gas is going to be as expected and not tragically low. We also think what's written in here is that we see biogas plants which today are producing gas in order to create a cluster and produce electricity. It's green electricity. They have a potential of development for biogas production. And then the bigger number of the bigger volume of biogas is going to facilitate production of biomethane. So there is such a potential, and we are waiting for the first clients. So we are discussing with the first ones. Of course, the dream of being able to transfer biomethane to Europe, and they understand that there can be a bigger remuneration for such a gas, but we will see how it will work in practice. We are working on it, though. Well, I would like to underline, in such difficult conditions as we have today, we are unsure whether we will be organizing our meeting of clients. Therefore, the clients who are here in the room, we would like to tell you that we are a reliable partner. We deliver services to gigantic storages, as you've seen on the previous slide, storages that are still unused. And we believe that we are an interesting market to locate gas. Sometimes we've had big premiums for that, and there were significant volumes being sold in Ukraine before the war, and I hope we are going to come back to it after the war. Right now we are working on diversification, and we really want to integrate with Europe. It is very important to us that Ukraine has become a candidate state to the European Union, and that's what we are building our future on. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Should you have any questions, there is room for them now. If not, then during the coffee break, I'll be happy to answer your questions. Should I not be able to answer, then I will call my colleagues and ask them. First, a round of applause. Thank you very much for your presence, most of all, and also for all the information you've shared regarding functioning of Ukrainian operator in such demanding and difficult, challenging conditions. Should you have any questions, you're invited to ask them right now or during the coffee break, which we are about to have soon. Thank you very much. So once again, a round of applause for Mr. Director.
Bezpieczeństwo energetyczne.
Energy security includes investment into infrastructure and opening new interconnectors and new sources of accessing new sources of delivery. We've heard about the new launches, new commissions. Director of the International Department of our company will discuss this together. Firstly, Director Siemiracki will be coming to join us, but he will discuss this with his partners in other countries. Hello, it is a pleasure to be with you today and to discuss projects which are to some extent my children. I've started with the gas system in 2006, back in the Ministry of Economy, responsibility for the infrastructure on oil and gas. Since 2011 with the gas system, and I've been engaged in development of the LNG terminals. Initially, my department that has prepared these projects for implementation, and we are responsible for physical implementation. How does that look? Each one of these projects have their own personal history, so to speak, which includes many years of work and engagement of people. And so happens that this year turned out to be a unique year. The projects in our heads initially now became reality. Let me start with the first in terms of timing. when we spoke with our Lithuanian colleagues, this was back in 2001, the first feasibility study was run back then about the interconnections with Poland. This was indeed important because back then Lithuania was separated, was from the networks, European networks. It was not part of EU as yet, had no connection with European network. So they were at the mercy of Gazprom colleagues. Great opportunity occurred once EU funding came for connection of these energy islands with the systems, and that allowed us to move forward from 2015 and 16. Great opportunity occurred for funding part of this from EU funds. And this led to development of the project, and initial agreements between operators were signed. This year, in fact, we have just completed this. The entire project includes not just engagement of two companies, but also engagement of respective ministries, local authorities, and the European Union. Without the EU funds, this project would not have been possible. Support was substantial. Of course, regulators' acceptance of costs. This was not a project for us, couldn't be funded through our tariff. But when we look at this, look back at it, it's great that this project is in place. Lithuania has developed further, created Klaipėda terminal, LNG terminal, and the gas can flow both directions, in and out, in addition to ensuring security, because it guarantees deliveries of gas in case of cutoff from Russia. Also, terminal together creates safety, but also that creates additional trade opportunities. This interconnection was a vision of connection to corridors and to markets that were entirely separate until recently. The objective here is that the pipe should run east-west between our countries, and the connections are also important for the Slovakian side, because this volume is correlated with the Slovakian market size as such. If you look at 4.7 billion cubic meters per year to Slovakia, that is equivalent of the Slovakian market demand. And my colleague will discuss this in detail in a moment, but that creates security and safety for them, that we, in case of a shortage, we can support them. Another important connection this year, having commissioned this creates a window to the south. Looking at the market development, Polish companies were looking primarily at the German market, creating possibilities for sourcing in the west. But now we've opened up south. You could go south of Europe through west, through Germany, but you can go directly. And in the past, this was the modus operandi of this link. We are accessing two Greek terminals in Greece and also in Turkey, and connections of Turkey and with the Caspian Sea countries. So use of that southern route better than ever before. Today, of course, that's not possible because the situation is quite complex because of the under operation of that network. Looking at Hungary, that they have their own problems with deliveries of diversified gas, except for the Russian gas. In the subsequent years, the network in 5, 6, 7, this network, as it is built out, will create ever more opportunities for deliveries from that direction, but also from delivery of gas from Poland to that direction. Another important connection for Polish energy security with the in the context of replacement with northern Norwegian gas as replacing the Yamal gas, the gas that is safest, Norwegian gas. This connection is an effort that started even before 2016. You may remember I participated in ScanNet in 2008. That project failed, but there were earlier projects in 2001 that were not completed, also with Denmark. Pole pipe, 1990s, that project never materialized either. Now, for some, this was the fifth attempt. For me, it was the fourth attempt. And this project was actually completed. Something that was planned, that was in our heads of some people as our gateway to complete energy security in gas. The project itself engaged not just Danish side and Polish side, but this goes to Norway further, goes through Swedish waters as well. So we had engagement of the other two countries. The Danish administration was involved and the Norwegian systems operator. This project is coming online this year. This project has important aspects. Firstly, provides security, but we look at it in terms of market size. This we can export gas from Poland. The other way is 3 billion cubic meters, lower than, of course, the other way around. But of course, that market is smaller. One point of importance for Denmark itself. Looking at the Danish market, we have in fact doubled or more than doubled. We are going to increase the transfer through the Danish transmission system. So this was a major challenge, technical and financial. The entire system, Danish transmission system, had to be rebuilt so that they could transport major volumes. For us, this was of key importance in order to replace the Russian gas in the longer term. The entire arrangement had to be complemented with the rebuild out of the Polish system. In the western direction pipe, first of all, great engagement of state institutions supported this through administrative measures. They were all on the PCI lists, which streamlined the administrative approvals processes. And of course, the financial side. Looking at the commercial side, the Lithuania, Poland, Slovakia pipe connections were built on the basis of security of supply. To date, there was no commercial engagement. So the entire throughput there offered will be, it's not booked, it's all put forward to the market. And the connection between Poland and Denmark and then Norway, Baltic Pipe Project in other words, this had the commercial character. This was fully booked in the direction of Poland by the market. When it comes to looking forward after completion of this major CapEx investment period with these three major investments this year, we also started the second of the north-south pipes in the north to south direction. One of these are implemented. There are two sections are being planned. We have approvals for construction permits for the Gdańsk floating FSRU. Finally, let me add that the key importance is that terminal, FSRU. To some extent, We've started the open season procedures already, the first part or phase of it completed by now, and there we have market commitments of 1.6 billion cubic meters and to flow through that point by 2027. Historically speaking, the importance of that, all of these projects, as you see in the respective maps, and you can compare that prior to 2022 and current situation, you can see drastic changes. Looking at interconnection points with Ukraine, and that's great, and we're working on this direction. We have incremental improvements there, and this is being already served. It's no longer served by Yamal pipe. Looking at the remaining parts of the market, the entire market, when you look at that market prior, 22 billion cubic meters prior to the invasion of Ukraine, well, the new connections, we can go up to 3.5 billion capacity, including these new connections. I'm putting aside the interconnection points with Germany. We have the extra 10 with Slovakia altogether, and we can re-export back. Some, of course, photographic evidence of the respective projects. Poland, Lithuania, great financial engagement, human effort. These are happy moments where we can celebrate these. This is presidents of the respective countries present there, and European Commission also looking at Poland, Slovakia, prime ministers of Poland, Slovakia engaged in opening that. This happened a couple of months ago only, and the final connection completed. We were able to completed the build out, and we celebrated opening of that 3 days ago. So that describes the situation from my side. I will now hand over to my colleagues, operators, starting with Director of Commercial Director of Amber Grid, Vytautas Ruolia.
So thank you very much for GAZ-SYSTEM colleagues for inviting to this forum, which is organized in the market area from which or through which most of our new clients are coming this year. And also from Amber Grid side, we very welcome each of you, if you are interested for various market opportunities in the region up north of Poland, to connect or Amber Grid or any TSO in the region for using of our infrastructure, and either it is for bringing liquidity and competition to our markets by supplying in wholesale or retail level, or using infrastructure, be it LNG terminals, one currently and more in the pipeline, or the big storage in Latvia, which is one of the largest in the region. And looking at the start of the GIPL, well, it came online in May this year, after more than 10 years of work on analysis, preparation, and construction. It was commissioned in the very moment when it was used, when it was needed much more than previously thought. And from the very beginning, it is used to both sides and used both for diversification and security of supply in some moments in this region, and also for transiting gas from LNG terminal in Klaipėda, and in future from some other probably terminals which will be up north of Lithuania. Also, it is used quite a lot for market arbitrage, because in these days when gas market prices are very volatile and at high level, the difference is, and it's still a surprise that even without full usage of GIPL, the differences between Polish market zone and Lithuanian market zone are usually in double digit in euros. So it much more than the capacity costs. So any of you also, if you start using GIPL, probably you can get benefits out of this price arbitrage. Looking at the size of capacity of GIPL, so it is at the level which allows to bring more than 40% to the region up north of Poland, so for 3 Baltic states and Finland. From Poland perspective, it's about 10% of national demand. And the Gustorzen-Vronov pipeline, which was mentioned in previous presentation, is really vital for the capacity of GIPL, as until it will be implemented, the capacity from Poland to Lithuania will be limited on certain periods of time, as there is no gas from eastern direction, and to provide gas just from western or southern directions, there are certain limitations depending on national demand in Poland and other directions. So until 24, the capacity from Poland will be usually somewhat lower than the design one, although quite a lot of that will be provided in short products, maybe interruptible products, and of course TSOs will look how to maximize the overall accessible capacity. So what has been the first month of usage of GIPL? So they were much better than expected in various analyses and by various stakeholders. And as we see, and this dark green curve is the one which dominated, and that was commercial flow towards Poland. Although we see it is quite fluctuating, even on daily basis, and that means that, well, really, there were situation in the market assessed, and depending on the prices, depending on where the gas was needed, the shippers were taking decisions on daily basis where the gas should flow and how much it should be left. Although the capacity was booked for months for pretty stable level, not all of that was used. The blue line below, what was commercial flow towards Lithuania. And here we see that despite the fact that the net flow was towards Poland, there were a number of market players which saw the opportunities in our region, and they were bringing the gas to sell in Lithuania and other states, or to bring gas to Inčukalns underground gas storage in Latvia. And for all this period up till now, the flows were towards Poland, and just in the last probably 3 days, the flows reversed to Lithuania, because our major source of supply, LNG terminal, now is offline for the planned maintenance. So the maintenance will end up by the 1st of October, and probably the flows would reverse. However, we see that also it provides a certain flexibility during the maintenance period, and that is very much appreciated by TSOs as well. it provides flexibility for us to plan together with terminal operator when to do this. The number of the shippers also was increasing during that period, and we see that quite a lot of interest from various parties was to bring the gas to Baltic region. So especially in August and September, there were quite a lot of market players which were playing in our market and bringing gas, various amounts depending on the market situation. So we are very glad to see these figures, and we hope that more will come on board. As I mentioned before, the market arbitrage is pretty big. Also, there's quite a lot of sourcing or storing opportunities in our region. And the key element nowadays for the sourcing is LNG terminals. Currently, we have up north of Poland, a single one. It's in Klaipėda, which currently allows both cover full needs of national demand in Lithuania and also major part of demand in other Baltic states and Finland. Allows also to put some gas into the storage in Latvia, and even some outflows towards Poland. However, in very near future, new terminals are coming to the commissioning. One is small-scale LNG terminal on the shores of Finland. It's Hamina LNG terminal. So even though the capacity is pretty small, and it's small-scale LNG terminal, so on usual commercial basis, the gas should be more expensive there. However, in current circumstances, it's very helpful for supply of security of the Finland, and with pretty low usage of the gas in overall region, in 4 countries. So it's quite a substantial increase of additional import capacity. The other large-scale LNG terminal should come on board in December, and that's Inkoo-Paldiski LNG terminal. So 2 jetties are built on each of the shores of Finn Gulf. And, well, by public information, where the first jetty will be commissioned, there the ship will be berthed. The FSRU is already leased by Finnish TSO, GAZ-Grid. If there will be a very short period of time between commissioning of these 2 jetties, who knows? Maybe there will be some decision to wait until it will be in the Finland finished, and it will be berthed there where it is foreseen for the long period of time. And the capacity is similar as in Klaipėda, and also will depend on the surrounding transmission infrastructure, which will also determine how much can gas be evacuated from that area where the terminal entry point will be. Then looking further on, there are 2 non-FID projects. So one is in Latvia, a Skūte LNG terminal with pretty high daily capacity. And it is acknowledged as the project of national importance in Latvia. And we'll see how it goes further, the implementation. It could come on board in some 3 years time from now. The other project where Ambergrid is quite actively right now working with our LNG terminal operator is the enhancement of capacity of Klaipėda LNG terminal by 1/3 or 2/3, depending on the needs. So the technical analysis are now performed, and the open season should be started at the end of this year or beginning of next year, with possibility also to inquire the market about the increase of GIPO capacity if we'll see that the need for this additional regasification capacity comes mainly from the south. So in that case, we will come also to GAZ-SYSTEM to cooperate on how we can offer this additional capacity on Gipel. So eventually, having these terminals in place, it will definitely be enough for the region up north of Poland, and a certain sourcing could be for Polish or other southern states' needs. So thank you for your attention. Also, thank you for those who already are our clients. And I really encourage to be in contact those who are interested to use Gipel and to come to our market. If needed, we can arrange even the meetings with a few operators, and we have a history of that few TSOs with LNG terminal operator together explain how the market works, how we can provide services, and what are the opportunities. Thank you.
So the second speaker in this part, Ceto, sorry Daniel. Yes, for the last 6 years actually we are cooperating almost on a daily basis in the EU affairs. Daniel is a representative of the EU stream in the Brussels, so he's very, very deeply engaged in all the European affairs, and one might say that from my opinion, actually we have the best cooperation when you are looking at what's going on in Brussels. We've got almost everyday consultation what's going on there and what should be our position. So that's the best example of the cooperation inside the V4 between two countries on the European level. So Daniel, the Polish and Slovakia interconnection to be presented, that's now your duty.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Slamer. Absolutely pleasure to be here with you. Here are the slides. To start with, for those who are not familiar with Ustream, with us, we, the same way as Gas TSO of Ukraine, we are a, let's say, critical piece of infrastructure serving European gas demand. And speaking about the numbers, in the normal days, let's say, we are responsible for around 10% of the European gas demand. Before going into the slides and more technical details, I would like to share with you one story, actually. Long time ago, relatively long time ago, like 12 years ago, I was with my colleagues sitting together in the office of European Commission. And for those of you who have a kid, and I know some have a lot, Slawomir, for example. There is a popular cartoon. It's called Bob the Builder. It's very popular in Belgium and around those countries. And we were sitting there, and the Commission and INEA at the time, now SINA, was accusing us that we are all Bob the Builders. You know, we like to build, we want a lot of money, and so on and so on. And for a long period of time, it stayed with me, this picture. And after all what we did since that time, I get to the opinion that we are more Bob the fixers than the builders, and I will explain now why I have this opinion. So I'll go again a bit more to the past. So before 2009, the region in general, the CE region, was very vulnerable. You might see some notes there. Market was absolutely not developed the way as it should be or as it is now at the moment. We had basically only one liquid hub in the region. Huge dependency on Russian gas, no access to LNG, not even through Poland, fragmented markets, and the key words for that period of time was missing integration and diversification. Here are some slides from the past, how gas prices was used as a weapon, basically. We are back to that period, but it's a different story. And what was the result? You can see on the map how was the situation in that time. You see, obviously the red is bad, so heavily dependent with a lot of troubles and problems. And what we did. So since that time, numerous actions happened, whether it was in neighboring countries, but especially in Slovakia. So we start with the rivers from Czech Republic, which was absolutely must for us at that time. Interconnection with Ukraine. We call it small rivers flow or something like that. Absolutely important in that time, I would say, and in the upcoming years. Interconnection with Hungary. That was, let's say, the first step of North-South interconnector. Then increase the capacity from the west. In case some miracle will happen in Germany, you never know. We might need capacity there. And then the key one, interconnection with Poland. Why the key one? So for us, it was always the usual flows from Ukraine or from Russia towards the Europe, delivering a massive amount of gas. But the north-south corridor was missing. We obtained, and you heard it before, the PCI status. Oh, sorry, the PCI status. Absolutely important for the development of the projects. And what was the key for us to connect the Baltic Sea region, now with the LNG terminals and the Baltic pipe, thanks to the gas system colleagues, with Adriatic Sea, the LNG terminal in Kirk. And that link between us was the key, so the Hungarian interconnection, Poland interconnector. For those of you who don't know the technical details, here are the simple slide. The key for you is technical capacity. Again, Slavomir already mentioned it. Towards Slovakia, 4.7, which is more or less equal to the Slovak consumption. But because of a lot of connections we have around, we still keep in mind our possibility to be the one delivering the gas to the other countries, whether it will be the Ukraine, Hungary, if needed, Czech Republic, you never know. And towards Poland 5.7, and I must say that we already start slightly looking into possibility if there is a chance to increase the capacity, if the market will need it, of course. Some photos from the construction, nice one. And the latest news, and you already saw the picture, on 26 August we were able to celebrate the completion of the interconnection. In a matter of weeks we will be ready to commission it and to start the real operation. So I would say really key infrastructure. And for some time I was thinking what key message to give to you today. And I get to the point that we did most of our homework. We even, as you can see, clean after ourselves. And now it's up to you, because I've been told that there are a lot of shippers, ministry in the room. So it's up to you now to take over from here. So our job is more or less done. And now it's up to you to prove that we are the right ones, that we are the fixer of the situation, and that what we built will be used for the benefit of the region. Thank you.
And the third speaker in this part, that's going to be the Lasse Krogh from the Danish TSO. I mean, Denmark, give me one side, say something about Denmark, because actually this is quite important when you're looking at the market. When you've got the summer valley of the gas consumption, you're looking at this, how the consumption looks in the summer, there's a small valley. And this, in looking at the Denmark, this valley is 100% covered by biomethane production. So this is something that is really very important for such a market as ours, looking at the potential of the biomethane production. And it's the best, actually, and so now we will have also a few words to say about the biomethane production in Denmark. And in this point, this is very important. So Lasse, please, the floor is yours. You may present the Polish Denmark interconnection from your point of view. Yep.
Thank you, Slavomir. And thank you to GAZ-SYSTEM for giving us at Energinet the opportunity to present a very good news, the opening of a Baltic pipe. I will present the latest news. I both have some good news and a little bit of small delays. First, I also want to say that it's good to be back here in Warsaw. Actually, I lived here about 10 years ago, I was working at the Danish embassy. So it's really good to be back and present the great news of opening of Baltic Pipe. And yeah, you all also seen this picture once more, but it's just to illustrate that the opening of Baltic Pipe is also a very big thing in Denmark, and it has been a lot of news stories about it in all the big medias. To the news of Baltic Pipe, some very good news, I believe, that we are able to offer full capacity from the end of November. We are ahead of schedule. As you may know, we have had some delays from our side, but it's progressing very well. And now we are able to offer full capacity from the end of November. To some of the less greater news, a safe startup is needed, so we have to reduce the capacity in the beginning until the end of November. Due to technical issues at our compressor station in Everdrup. So we have to reduce the capacity to a new level of 2,600 megawatt hours per hour from tomorrow and until we reach full capacity in end of November. Also, our entry point to Denmark towards Norway, the North Sea entry point, there's a very short delay here of 1 week. So we will not be able to transport Norwegian gas through Baltic Pipe in the first week, but from the 8th of October, we will open the full line towards the Norwegian system. And the Baltic Pipe project in Denmark, it has faced many challenges. There has been the COVID-19 pandemic, the whole geopolitical situation. It has been hit by bad weather. And of course, an overruled environmental permit meant that we have to stop all construction work on Jutland and the island of Funen for almost a half a year. So that really delayed, so that we are only about 1 or 2 months delayed. I think that's really a good achievement. And on this map, you can see where it is that we are a bit delayed. Over here at the receiving terminal in Nybro, we have the delay of about 1 week. The construction here in the middle of the part where we have to stop the work for almost half a year, it's progressing very well, and we will be able to connect this pipeline in the end of October and start pressure testing, and we will be ready for full operation at the end of November. Also, our compressor station in the east of Zealand, there are some minor delays, but we will also be ready with this compressor station for full operation in end of November. A little bit about the Danish market zone and how this looks like. If there should be any interested shippers out there. We have a common Danish and Swedish market zone with entry and exit points. So This will enable shippers to directly enter the Danish and Swedish market from Norway from tomorrow. And we have a capacity for sale if anyone should be interested. Actually, the latest news just from yesterday is that we will lower our tariffs due to our change in our economic regulation. So we can reduce our tariffs with about 13%. So I think that's good news. And for the capacity platforms that we use in Denmark, we use the Prisma platform for all our points except the Faxe point, where we use the GSA platform. And it has been decided that we rotate every third year between Prisma and the GSA platform or the Faxe point. So if any shippers are interested, then register in due time at these platforms. Then, as Slavomir said, I would like to present the latest news here about the biomethane production in Denmark. It's going extremely fast, the development of biomethane production in Denmark. This August, we reached almost 30% of our annual gas consumption, which came from biomethane production, and it's really been an incredible journey. You can say just 2 years ago we were at 10%, and now we are at 30%. So it's going really fast in Denmark, and I also believe that in this current situation on the gas market, this also gives an extra security of supply for the Danish gas market. That it's really good to have this here in this situation. And if you also you see a picture of where all the biogas plants are located. Right now we have 52 plants, and 8 more plants are coming soon. And you also see here the projection of biomethane production compared to the annual gas consumption in Denmark. And right now the projection is that actually in the late 20s we will reach 100% of our annual gas consumption will be produced from biomethane. So I really think this is a great achievement in Denmark. Of course, it also helps that the gas consumption is on the way down in Denmark, quite opposite to for example, here in Poland. Quite recently, the government of Denmark published what they call a green gas strategy, saying that gas in Denmark should be used mostly in industry, where it is creating most value, and gas in households and public buildings should be phased out gradually. So this was my presentation about Baltic Pipe and the Danish gas market. Thank you for your attention.
Szanowni Państwo, serdecznie witamy Państwa po przerwie.
Welcome again after the break, ladies and gentlemen. And again, asking you to switch off your phones. Ahead of us, an important presentation in the context of security of supply and various activities that are in line with European strategies. Asking Piotr Kuś, General Director of ENTSOG. We invite you to the stage, sir. Thank you so much. By way of introduction, I'd like to express my appreciation to the invitation for us as ENTSOG. This is a touching moment because at the previous meetings of this kind, I was on the other side of the stage and was engaged as operator, and we were involved in dialogue with the market participants, clients. So thank you the more so. I understand how much effort and time this takes. Under these trying times, we typically tend to focus on matters of importance in terms of security of supply and to ensure that the tasks committed to operators be implemented on time, within budget, and so on, and that everything works as required. When we speak about security of supply, I'd like to move immediately to the topic of our presentation and present to you, I thought with my team that we would bring these two things together. The dominant set of issues are security of supply in the short term. But then again, whatever the situation in the short term, we do need to think of what has been already adopted by European Union and all our decision makers at the governmental level and European institutions for the long haul. And in other words, in addition to focusing on the short term, we need to look forward as to what the long-term transition is taking, how that transition is proceeding. So to move forward, I try not to avoid any fad words and acronyms that not everyone can read and understand. Let me start with some information also about us and the fact when I say that I will speak in Polish and presentation is in English. So this is a mix for those who do not listen in Polish or in English. And interpretation, for benefit of the interpreters, I'll speak slightly slower. Now, ENTSOG, which brings together all the TSOs, certified TSOs in Europe, in European Union, has been appointed as part of the third package, gas package of 2009. And we've been vested with a number of tasks under that regulation. Our secretariat is located in Brussels with 42 members, 2 associated partners, and 10 observers in our midst. These categories are there because the mandatory participation are all the certified TSOs in Europe, across Europe. We also admit to our work operators from within the European area, economic area, but we also collaborate with partners who are members of the Energy Commonwealth, which includes representatives of countries that have signed the Energy Commonwealth, which is the Energy Community Charter. And this is a selection of our key tasks. We focus primarily on tasks specified in the regulation. So we take responsibility for preparation on biannual basis of 10-year European network development plans. The most recent, dated 2022, is currently being developed. We're working on it. This is important because that takes into account the energy transformation, and we need to mention that most of the projects notified to this 10-year plan will be hydrogen fuel transmission and are being prepared for that for the future. Another is the outlooks, what we refer to as outlooks. This is part of a discussion about security of supply. These are issues that we publish on semi-annual basis for the summer. So this creates, discusses the possibility of filling the storage facilities for the winter season, and of course to ensure the parameters of the network, taking into account the colder season with the peak demand. And this has been so far the least monitored and the most boring possibly for some publications of ours, but have been finally broadly consulted in them now when the crisis hit. The network codes, as you know, we have adopted them, and we operate within 4 such network codes. These were developed with TSOs, our members. We've adopted them and implemented them. We were also vested with the responsibility for monitoring of implementation of the codices and information about market conditions. Also, we have platforms that ensure transparency, sharing information about all key interconnectors in Europe, and something that looks forward-looking views that we focus on. In other words, how that network and the energy network is going to look into the future, how they will look in terms of adoption of low emission gases or hydrogen, that is ever more talked about, that has been with us for some time, but is incredibly important from the legislative point of view, work on that. Coming back to the short-term issues, as you know, the crisis situation commenced in autumn of last year. Even the earlier monitoring of low storage levels, fuel storage levels, brought some concerns and worries. So we prepared analyses or research called the winter preparedness reports. Particularly, of course, from February onwards, invasion of Russia on Ukraine, we activated processes to monitor. We refer to this as RECO teams, regional coordination. Initially on daily basis, now these representatives have exchanged information on that. Now it's maybe less frequent, but still very important tabletop exercises, checking what operators can do at the level of commissioning to manage the break in deliveries, stoppages. We've used that particularly under the new regulation on demand reduction, where it is assumed that Europe needs to reduce its consumption, gas consumption in the winter season by 15% on voluntary basis, initially with mandatory rules if that does not achieve the effect. We know that 88% filling of the facilities is the current level, and that came as a result of the regulations of filling up of these facilities. We've and we have achieved exceeded the 80% assumed level, and we hope that we will soon be at 90% across Europe. We've also indicated what needs to be done in order to reduce the dependency or deal with the declining deliveries from Russia. So we pointed to the fact that we need to maximize LNG volumes, that there is a lot of work to prepare on turning around the flows in Europe that typically worked from east to west. Now we need to be able to move. The schemata of west-east is actually coming to play. And looking further, when we continue in the crisis format, we will need to be assessing on an ongoing basis and indicate what the conditions might be for stabilizing the systems across Europe. What is also obvious, right after the opening of the beginning of the crisis, we launched dashboards, which is the graphics that we publish data on the flows and filling of the storage facilities. You can monitor those flows across Europe from all of the possible sources, LNG inclusive. We communicate, which is very important. We need to focus on how the market operates. This we used various platforms. The transparency platform, well known to all of you, I'm sure. This is not just market participants, but observers, media visit regularly, and we note that through our servers with real-time entry and through the cooperation with our operators, we update the data of hits. We also inform about innovative projects. There is a separate platform for that. The most recent is the visualization of the hydrogen projects, which we make available for all of the promoters of these. This includes projects from all and any projects, including the entire value chain, from generation, distribution, and transmission and distribution. To look at the future also, the long-term decarbonization is the obvious outlook. The current situation has forced us to respond in the short term, but also repowering Europe through emission reduction of fuel. We have number of objectives that were adopted in terms of new objectives in productions of biogas production targets, hydrogen production targets. Our infrastructure will be part and parcel of this new landscape. It's going to help us move with the transpiration effectively, because of course our solution is orders of magnitude cheaper than running this on a standalone basis, particularly on the hydrogen side. It is important that all these matters be brought together so that the infrastructure can achieve the objectives. And NSOC's task here is to participate in the dialogue through technical discussions, the way we discuss where the production, when the takeoff is going to be located, to transform the infrastructure through repurposing, how to deal with hydrogen in pure form, how to use it in the existing networks, and how to structure the projects and where to fund the sources of funding, and how to share the information across the users of this new economy. We need to point to the fact that it's important that this market be planned from outset mapping volumes, in other words, on the supply and demand side, to create appropriate relevant infrastructure. Something that I've mentioned already is the joint engagement of all the market participants, all the value chain participants, so that we build out the infrastructure for new gases. We've mentioned here already that we need stable, robust regulatory framework. Anyone operating on a regulated market understand that. And there is a broad discussion about the new gas package as operators with our infrastructures. We need to be adopting it to the new gases, and we see ourselves as the key organizer of this new economy by the fact that we are looking for synergies here. And we have a competitive advantage in this area. We have well-developed infrastructure across Europe, and we have players who understand how to maintain and operate the infrastructure. And there's no reason why not use this infrastructure. And this makes us independent from the external suppliers, Russia inclusive, and with targets set for that decoupling by 2027. They need to cooperate. We need to cooperate to be able to carry new gases. We need to work with these new companies in cogeneration with the existing infrastructure, so that security of supply be ensured throughout the energy transformation period. That is all from me. Thank you very much. I'm happy to answer questions. Director, thank you very much for that presentation and all the information you've shared with us on the development of the NSEC offers to us, such as being able to monitor the directions and volumes and so on. These are incredibly useful for us. If you have any questions to Director Kuś, this is the opportunity to understand better the project implemented by NSOC. We will hand microphones to those. I do not see questions. So again, a round of applause and thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
A teraz kolejny temat.
Now another topic directly related to our infrastructure and its development, and information about the use of LNG terminal in Świnoujście and the implemented project of development of the terminal. This is the topic regarding which Łukasz Trzeszkowski, the next speaker, is going to talk about. He is the Chief Specialist of Regasification Services Department of GAZ-SYSTEM. Thank you very much. Terminal LNG in Świnoujście has been mentioned several times today in the presentation, and it has been said that I am going to familiarize you with how efficiently the operator has been using this infrastructure in those difficult times. I will try to show you how the processes that are implemented in the terminal look like in the light of the services offered. The process starts with reloading, and the installment is dedicated to conventional tankers. Those are units from 100 to 200 LNG to 216 cubic meters of LNG. So those are units of Q-Flex type. Then LNG is transported via pipelines to two containers, which are of 160,000 square meters of LNG each. There, we are storing LNG. In the further part of the process, LNG is being transferred to regasification of STV type, where there is a process of exchange from liquid LNG form to gas form, which is on the next stage transferred to measurements and transferred to national system, capacity system. So the service offered in the terminal is a package service. It consists of unloading, processed storage, and process of regasification. We should indicate that in the terminal, the installation is designed in a redundant way. It's N+1. That means that the key components of terminal are redundant. That means that the basis project assumes a capacity of regasification at the level of 5 billion cubic meters yearly, is based on regasification plants in the formula 4+1. So we have installed 5 SCV regasificators, which ensure the stable regasification at this level. As you see, from the beginning of this year, 2022, we have increased the capacity to 6.2 billion, and after 2024, this amount is going to be increased to the level of 8.3 billion yearly. Another important aspect is what additional services are being offered in the infrastructure. Those are additional services. An additional service is a service provided in the framework of services which belong to the basic service. One of the services is loading LNG to car tankers, and it's redundant again. We have 3 stations for loading tanker trucks. It is being done in a formula 2+1. So at once we are loading 2 tanker trucks. In the framework of additional services, we are offering 2 significant services which are separate. One is of storage, processed storage at our containers, and another one I am going to speak of later on. Several of numbers when it comes to functioning of our terminal. Right now, we are functioning and offering services only for 1 user of terminal, but we are offering the services on the basis of 2 agreements. First, from 2010, which was signed during the construction of terminal, and the second one signed 10 years later in 2020, which has been signed during the process of extending the terminal. As you see, 2022 in the terminal is different than in TSO. So the operator for gasification has a gas year which is equal to calendar year. So this year we have received 40 deliveries, and we are planning to receive 18 more. So in total planned deliveries are at amount of 58. According to the report from 31st of August, we have loaded 3,568 tanker trucks. How does it look like in comparison to historical data? Here you can see the number of tanker arrivals. From the historical point of view, between 2015 and 2016, we've had 2 deliveries. Those were deliveries for the startup to cool down, to test the guaranteed parameters. Those were performed by a company that was in charge of terminal construction. But as of 2016, you can see systematic growth of deliveries to the terminal. And as it has been said, the terminal before the crisis was already one of the mostly used terminals, LNG terminals in Europe. In 2020, 2021, we have a stable situation, but we've all the time been noting very high level of use of installed powers, around 80–85% of contracted power. Another slide, another graph shows transshipment to tanker trucks. We've had above 1,500 in 2017, and in the last year 5,700. So it's 4 times of a growth in loading tanker trucks. Here we can see a dynamic growth. On the next slides, I am going to discuss what activities have to be undertaken by an operator to be able to serve such a to match such a demand. The last graph shows what types of tankers are arriving to the terminal. You can see that the biggest delivery was above 1,025 cubic meters of LNG. That was the smallest one, and the biggest above 1,400. So, ladies and gentlemen, in order to unload the biggest unit, we need to have storage of 1.5 container. So that requires full coordination on the side of user and operator of terminal to use the installed powers in an efficient way. And to efficiently use the whole infrastructure which is at our disposal. And to work efficiently. An average delivery indicates that we are receiving mostly big units arriving at our terminal. Here you can see a graph which shows precisely how the operator is managing a current situation. 3 consecutive months, May, June, July of the last year and of the 2022. On the left side, you see percentage 96, 98, and 91. As I said before, last year the terminal has been used at a very high level. So efficient use of the power was on a very high level. But because of the current situation, the operator decided to take extra measures to use it to a bigger extent, to use the infrastructure available. You for sure want to ask, how can you go above 100%? Well, let me answer. So at first, I mentioned redundant infrastructure philosophy when we were speaking of pumps and regasification, and the design was made in such a way that there were 2 additional requirements. One was a possibility of delivery of wide spectrum LNG, such as, for example, low caloric LNG or with nitrogen. So the volume of gas, which is not is taken into account. And the flexibility of facility also assumes different mixes of gas. Another value is work in 2 modes. One is an maximal capacity and normal capacity mode. Those were assumed in both project and implementation phase. So because of the situation, each time we are verifying whether all available values and parameters which allow to share the technical powers are available. If they are, then we issue such an information to the user. And should the user be interested of sharing, making the power available, then we are recalculating and making it available in an efficient way, and that's increasing the so-called contracted capacity. Well, as you can see in the graph, a very good example is July. It is a month when every hour was used in an efficient way. So each volume of power was efficiently used for providing services. Below, we've indicated that in the framework of preparatory works for deliveries in 2023 gas system, in the framework of all the discussions declared that we are ready to continue implementation of services on the increased level of distributed contractual capacity. Expansion problem. Well, as you know, the basic project of 5 billion is not enough. It's not enough power, it's not enough infrastructure for our country. Therefore, we have taken a decision to extend and develop the infrastructure. The program of development consists of three components. First is SCV project. This is based on increasing dynamical regasification capacity of the terminal. It has already been finalized. At the first stage, we've increased the regasification power to 6.2 billion. Another project is adding additional storage capacity. This storage capacity is slightly bigger than the two existing, and as you remember, those are 160,000 square meters, cubic meters of LNG. This is what has been available in the base project. We tried to use it to the maximum. And the third, very important project, shore project. The existing shore is one direction project. This is receiving only from conventional units from 120 LNG up, and the shore is going to be two ways. It is going to allow for both unloading and loading, including storage. There will be two spaces, so a bigger spectrum will be used within the framework of the project. Here, taking into account the synergy of existing and new infrastructure, the implementation of the project of expansion will allow us to ultimately increase the whole capacity of the terminal to the level of 8.3 billion per year. The planned date of finalizing the extension is 2024. As I mentioned, SCV project has already been finalized. From the beginning of this year, we've been offering increased regasification power. So we've implemented both deliveries of tools, and we've finalized construction works. We've obtained the permission last year. What is important is in the framework of all the components that were installed in SCV, we have conducted regasification to the maximum technical power, and we've confirmed a so-called performance test at the level of 984,000 cubic meters per hour. This is the key parameter in the light of safety of the facility and network. The two remaining projects, as you see, are still ongoing. When it comes to the container project, we finalized the construction of the wall and the foundations. Here we have an old picture, but we have already conducted an operation of elevating the roof, and we are right now putting concrete over the tank, and we are going to have some work inside of the container. We are going to now discuss the project of the wharf, where we have finalized putting pails, and we are about to and we finalized putting concrete, and we are about to do next works. Now you can see the timeline of the extension program. It started in the concept phase in 2018, and gaining required permits for all the elements of the program. In 2019, we've signed a contract for key components. In 2020, the key event was, as I said before, finalizing procedure of open season and signing a contract for offered services and the powers within the program, and taking the final decisions regarding the program. We have also signed contracts with contractors of the program. In 2021, we finalized the mounting of SCV, and we were starting the SCV. In 2021, right now, we are offering services on the infrastructure that we have, and we are continuing works on the wharf project and on the container project. We are planning to finalize the program at the end of 2023, we are going to start using the full installation in 2024. I ran out of time, so I am going to try to very briefly tell you about a very important aspect. As I mentioned, because of dynamic growth of the demand for tanker trucks, operator has modified both physically and organizationally the modus operandi in order to be able to serve. We've increased to the volume of total to 95,000 tons. In that's how we have been offering it up till 2021. It was 20 loading windows per 24 hours. You can see the hours of the planned loading. Monday, Saturday, it was 7:30, 6 p.m. Then there were night shifts and the weekend mode. Right now, it is 130,000 tons within 30 loading windows. Monday, Sunday, 7:37, 7:30, 5:30. And there is a night shift, 7:30, 5:30. As of the next year, it is going to be constant 30 windows for loading. Should there be a significant increase in the interest of the users, we may continue on optimizing up to 40, maximum 40 loading windows. Of course, we will have to first make sure we have enough staff with this. So this is the activity with this respect, and we are implementing IT system. Here, I would like to discuss it for a moment. Right now, we are in the phases of introducing the new harmonogram system. It is aiming to
do wymiany informacji.
Create a portal for exchange of information. This platform has a possibility of checking in real-time accessibility, what slots are available, whether works are completed, and so forth. In case of availability of user slots, they can publish documents, the necessary documents on standard, in a standard mode, and generate reports and to manage events on digital basis. We've implemented 2 initial bullets of that, which includes the technical assumptions, and we have already made announcements of the tender and pre-selected the shortlist, and we have a working group that's working on this. We are planning to move with the system, launching the system is in the second quarter of 2023. Thank you very much. Łukasz, thank you very much for that, Łukasz. We are slightly in a delay. Unless you have a specific question, we should be moving forward. Once again, thank you, Łukasz, for your presentation of your part. And now I invite Ms. Renata Grzymała of the Tariffs Department, who will share with us the assumptions for the 2023-2024 year tariffs. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is an opportunity to meet you once again. We are convening on annual basis, and in this case, again, I will try and give you an overview of the key tariff assumptions for this new year. Now, gas system by energy law has been appointed to the role of TSO, and by law it also prepares tariffs for the national system, but also for the transit, transmission and transit networks. As any European operator, GAZ-SYSTEM SA is required under the European Tariffs Code to maintain tariffs within specific limitations and frameworks. The objective here, naturally, was to create a methodology that could be consulted by with the market, so that you could speak your intentions as TSOs as far as calculation of the tariffs are concerned, and hence this methodology is being built with user input, and its objective is to provide information in a transparent manner for the entire market in terms of methodology, rates, and the types of services to be offered by the transmission systems operator. And also to provide you with information on the level, or be more precise, whether there is any cross-subsidy, internal systemic use of the network, in other words. This methodology, by decision of GAZ-SYSTEM, was adopted or approved by the regulator and presented to the market for 2 years, 23 and 24, in spite of the fact that the code allows for a 5-year operation of a given methodology. The reason here is that our system is in a transformative stage. Many projects are coming online, and and we anticipate that this happening, somewhat different sources of supply. And after 2022, we know that this is what has happened already, which is why GAZ-SYSTEM prepared methodology for just 2 years, 2023 and 2024, in which period we will test the methodology. I will discuss that in a moment. Now, this methodology is then complemented, this broad framework, which is what we refer to as broad consultations, and the regulator approved that in March of 2020 for the 2 years, which we've mentioned. This is being also further complemented by regulators' regular annual consultations to look at the adjustments necessary in the short term, so that level of seasonal application of seasonal ratios and multipliers, LNG entry points, and the types of discounts for intermittent products. These annual consultations, or information about these, about the level of discounts and rates, has been published on the 18th of March of 2022. Based on that information and methodology of the consultations, the information forms the basis on which we work on the development of the tariffs. Now, considering the fact that our national system is broadly expanded, it is not a representative of a typical straightforward transmission system. It's because more than 10 different calculations of various methods, we as GAZ-SYSTEM decided that for this year we will follow the postage stamp methodology. We've chosen that because it's the simplest methodology that allows us rates at the entry and exit points. Rates are equal on the entry and equal on the exit points. Additionally, we have discounts only for interconnectors with the caverns, underground storage facilities. The only change in the tariff referred to as 2023, and you're looking at methodology that's been adjusted by GAZ-SYSTEM, has been applied by us since the very beginning of GAZ-SYSTEM. However, looking at the most recent years, it has been maintained. There hasn't been much fluctuation or change there, which ensures for you stability from our standpoint as an operator, keeping to the rules that we've established. The only exception was in 2020, looking at 2023, the only exception will be the reduction and also we have changed slightly the proportions between entry and exit. Previously this was 45 to 55, now it will be 50-50 in this and the next year. What you're looking at now are the tariff rates that has been already approved by the regulator for 2023. The increases there are driven mainly by increases in the prices of energy, particularly 2022, where we needed to update the rates because we've underestimated these price increases. It was not possible to anticipate the electricity price increases, the level that they've actually gone to. So in this respect, transmission system is now adjusting that. Looking at 2023, the increment of the tariff is linked with the better estimated but still unpredictable prices of natural gas and electricity. But here you're already seeing the effect of implementation or a rollout of the major scale investments. The costs of operation of those new assets will need to be multiplied and included in the tariff. When we look at what I spoke about earlier, in other words, the short-term adjustments, short-term agreement adjustments, these factors have remained unchanged since compared to 2022. The minor changes you're seeing are only effects of the fact that these seasonal ratios or indicators need to be calculated in line with the tariff regulation, and these movements within the seasonal markets, it reflects the markets and flows in these peak seasons, in respective seasons. But these are minor changes, admittedly. Looking at the rebates or discounts for the intermittent services and LNG, they've been maintained at levels earlier adopted for the 2 years, 23 and 24. No changes in the rules. For LNG, that will be reported 100%, so you will not have charges for entry into the LNG terminal. Also the intermittent discount of ex-ante, which is a discount that you will be more beneficial for you, beneficent. The rebate will be 6%, whereas inside points within the network, 2% discount is still valid. As I also said, the new thing is that 2 non-transmission services for 23 and 24, because that's the period for methodology. First of those is the pressure reduction service for gas fuel. On the exit points, we have the measurement and reduction stations. There, of course, the changes will be adjustment of these points, or the list of these points will be changing at least once a month. The fee for that service will be a fixed fee calculated as a charge per kilowatt hour. In other words, for power. The other service, this is the fuel gas on the entry point, where we have pressure increase, compression. We are not talking about compressions or systemic compression. That is still part, and cost of that is still part of the transmission service. We are only mentioning the compression that's serviced to a given customer, specific customers. So this compression at 10 exit point has been identified, separated, and this would be offered and distributed among clients, so that not everyone pay for this service, only actual users. The fee there will be a monthly subscription fee, and based on the fuel volume used in the compressors. This is, of course, applies only to services rendered through those compression and entry points. Let me move quickly to the tariff that we will be actually introducing for the first time. This is for the transit gas pipes systems. This decision of March actually introduced this. March of 2022, of course, this year. The tariff here is will be calculated later, because the energy law states that, or requires definition of the obligations of the TSO, which regulates the relationship between the Europolgas, the owner of the infrastructure, and GAZ-System, who has been appointed the TSO by the regulator, which we've spoken to in the past. Now, in development of that methodology, that regulator did not change it substantially compared to what had been applicable on the transit and capacity-weighted distance methodology was adopted. This is a benchmark and recommended methodology for this type of tariffs, and European Tariff Code actually points to that. This methodology includes two price setting factors: distance and capacity, between, of course, entry and exit. The charge is a fixed one for capacity, for reserved capacity, and in this respect, as proposed by the gas system, which we proposed and the regulator approved, the division of costs between entry and exit points or ports is 50-50. And as for the rest of this domestic system, we have an ex-ante discount of 10% for intermittent transactions. And not too many other changes in the tariff setting methodology there. I'm thinking aloud whether I may have missed something. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'll await the present. Yes, this is an opportunity to ask questions about tariffs, methodology, and so on. Please feel free. No questions? Renata, thank you very much for your presentation.
Now, this is the next presentation. Any GAZ-SYSTEM Forum can make it without the instructions, which will be best presented to you by Stanisław Brzęczkowski. Stanisław, please come to the floor. morning, ladies and gentlemen. Last year, I wasn't here. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this time we've had twice consultations of instructions. It was mentioned in the timeline discussed by Mr. Director. Once we've had the consultations of SGT consultation. It is the system of gas pipes, and we also had a consultation of instructions called the Card of Changes. Thank you very much for participating in the consultations. To the changes in the SGT traffic, we've obtained 39 remarks. That's a pretty good result. Well, one more thing. We also consulted 2 new documents as the energy law made it more diverse to us. So besides for having just instruction after last changes, some of material conditions of contract is also under consultations and will have to be approved by the head of Energy Regulation Office. So when it comes to the contractual terms of SGT, you have not submitted any remarks. Thank you very much for that. This means that you accept the contract, the conditions, which are very well known in the general terms and conditions, and that means you like it. So I believe that the head of Energy Regulation Office is going to accept it too. A similar situation was when it comes to the Code of Changes. Only 9 remarks. This time there were indeed 2 remarks to the conditions, but they were related to just wording, so we've improved the wording, and I can tell you that the Card of Changes for national instruction has been submitted yesterday to the head of the Energy Regulation Office, and we hope it is going to be approved by the end of the year. As you've seen, it has a certain impact on our income. Well, coming back to the instruction of SGT, it was preparing for new conditions, because in the system of the end of the historic contract, there were certain ideas how to impact or use or impact the use of a system. Therefore, we've created conditional capacity, and as you probably acknowledged, it was reflected in the regulation, systematic regulation. Taking into account the current situation, we are going to leave the project even though it's not as important. And another series of changes in the instruction were related to harmonization of the regulations in both national and SGT network, because we've up till now had certain decrees, and we wanted to maintain the mode of work with our clients and the historical clients. So we've decided to harmonize the rules regarding the quality parameters of gaseous fluids and the technical standards, rules of connections. Those are the things that are there in instruction and that differed. If we manage to approve it, then the documents are going to be very, very similar. Another slight change, we've adapted the definition of a virtual trading point. This is a change which has been introduced into the Systematics Act, and it used to be only virtual point, which was only for which started to raise doubts when it comes to European Union's definition of virtual trading point. So we needed certain regulations. So according to our law, it wasn't virtual point, because virtual point is for trading. And this is how we have nice naming, grid connection point, to be in line with everyone. Right now, the virtual trading point has been added as a virtual connection based on 2 different stations or several stations. That's where the change comes from. So I'm mentioning it to you. When it comes to changes of national instructions, we had a card of changes. We are soon going to work on bigger changes in the instruction though, but the card of changes has been mentioned because of the decision of changing the tariff, confirming tariff but changing the rules of the game. So therefore there was a need to redefine in the instruction the service of reduction, and to define where it is being provided, on which basis. Therefore, the service is going to be provided on the stations where the reductor is a property of gas system. And the fee, as it has been said, is defined in the tariff. So it's an addition to the... well, I'm going to tell you something crazy, that we have two different rates. One is for the stations where we don't have reductor and another where we have reductor. So officially it is called a fee for reduction service, which doesn't depend for number or pressure, but sometimes gas system is not an author of certain solutions, but it's the Energy Regulation Office. So please don't ask me why it has been worded this way.
Też jakby pewnym elementem, który potrzeba...
A certain element which we needed to solve was the question of applications. Well, we apply whether on the basis of whether there is a reductor on the station or not. So the payment is where the reductor is. Here we have a graph in a situation where we only have a measurement at a physical point of the gas system, and when there is a reductor on the side of receiver, but on the stations where we have such a case that both belong to us, then we are applying the fee. So this is it when it comes to the instruction. When it comes to material contractual provisions, as I said, it is a certain novelty. One of this year's mentioned amendments to the energy laws, amendments to the energy law. We've had such a requirement that material contractual provisions have to be an annex to instruction and have to be consulted and will have to be approved by the chair of Energy Regulation Office. Within the framework of consultations of instructions and the card of changes, we have conducted the consultations, and if we manage, we are going to take it out of the general terms and conditions. It will be an annex to the instruction, and I hope it is going to work in the same way. It relates most of all such elements like the right to use transmission system when it or balancing the gas, and well, it's nothing new. It's being obliged to use both instruction tariff and general terms and conditions. So as I said, thank you very much for not submitting any significant remarks. We treat it as your good outlook at our approach, and we hope that the Energy Regulation Office is going to be enthusiastic about it. That's all in my head. Small changes, short story. Thank you. Thank you very much, Stanisław. And I have to ask you whether you have any questions to Stanisław regarding the changes in the instruction. I see no questions. Thank you very much once again. Now it's the time for the last presentation during today's workshop.
Zapraszam na scenę pana.
I invite director to the stage once again, now discussing for us what is going to happen in the upcoming year that starts actually tomorrow. I need to be frank with you and say that I don't like the final presentations because I'm competing with the dinner, I realize, or lunch. So I will give you a rapid run through the expectations of the coming things. The big things that await us include the national 10-year development plan, 2024 through to 2033. Why is that a major hard task? As you run your plans, prepare your plans, you realize how difficult a task it is in current situation with the huge scale of uncertainty in terms of prices of electricity, gas, emission trading prices, oil, the central heating and the CHPs, off-takers, distribution, any element you touch, we need to take into account the fact that each of these individually and together are hit by the effects of the global developments. The climate policies of the European Union, the domestic policies, what is demand for LNG, renewables, transformation, energy transformation process. There are so many topics such as biomethane, hydrogen, the new fuels. All of these need to be taken into account in the work we undertake. These elements, which are particularly important for us as we develop this 10-year development plan, is our perspective on how we perceive development of the system, our development of the market, and what will be significant there. On the demand, imports and exports, security, in other words, continuation with diversification of sources, and stabilizing of these new sources, new directions of transfer, which substantially changes our vantage point. Investment programs, all of that, things that we have included in our annual plans now needs to be reviewed as a must. Because of the changes in the directions, which is an obvious one, and the transformation, energy transformation. Until now, everyone believed that at some rate we will transform ourselves, slower or faster, but we will. And of course, the coal was unacceptable until recently, and as you know, today, EU has to somehow turn a blind eye to use of hard coal, the fact that it's there and it can replace other sources, other fuels, such as gas and so on temporary, of course, basis. And we need to take that stock of that. I will show you some of our forward-looking forecasts, and that will tell you a little bit more into our thinking, bring you more into it. Looking at the needs of the company and the economy over the next 10 years, we anticipate let's say, minor growth of demand for gas in the market. Immediately, we were looking at power and gas demand before the war broke out, but over the past years, the life has verified, double-checked, and in a sense overturned these forecasts. We realize that transformation will not come to a halt. It will not be called off. It will need to be, in a sense, postponed. There will be some countries that will deal with the crisis situation at a better rate, and those that will take longer to do so. Transformation will be clear to everyone, is inescapable. We need to take into account the peak time demands, and over the planned period we put in 56% increases there. We also need to complete projects linked to expansion of the interconnection points on the borders of Poland, and we need to increase the efficiency, energy efficiency of the transmission infrastructure as such. There are some pieces that have not been working to top of their efficiency. Every kilowatt hour of energy may be of critical importance. Short term, we need to make more flexible and strengthen the national transmission system. I was referring to the points of interconnection with the European system. That is going to serve that. And of course, cooperation with the state, serving of new clients, because the connection process continues and the energy transformation forces us to switch from some energy carriers to gas. The rate of that, let's say, substitution will be slightly slower, of course, but still going to continue. This is also linked with the regulations. Until recently, no important regulatory changes have occurred, which means that from 2025 on, there will be a lack of permits, emission permits. That's going to hit the entire, or take into account the entire market. Now, our perception of the structure are off-takers. This is a conservative scenario because war has changed everything. So we need to be looking at the future market in a more cool and collect way. If we look at the municipal sector, now 61%, industry 28%, and CHPs of all types around 11%. By 2035, that market is going to shift significantly. We assume that CHPs and also generators will be a bigger slice of the cake, of the pie. The municipal trade and services is going to come down, and so will industry. Looking at forecasts of annual volumes use, the forecast is the orange, which is the let's say medium scenario, and then the gray line being the gray curve being the conservative. And of course, war has clearly changed that. The blue line, the broken line, is where it has come to today, but we don't know how it's going to look, but we believe it's going to be looking like that over the past years, 2-3 years, with some decline in use. But once the market stabilizes, and this is inescapable, the old suppliers will be replaced. We will be ultimately coming back to the original track. Looking at capacities, this line is initially flattened, but our clients respond to changes. But admittedly, again, it's very, very difficult to forecast, particularly the upcoming 2 to 3 years. Now, our opportunities and plans, something that's been happening, and we cannot and will not just walk around. This is the hydrogen and biogas. Well, the program hydrogen program is something that is our response to this development. We've developed this program as which has a national and international dimension at European level. We work on the regulations and standards. We have been looking at the implementation of hydrogen on the basis of existing infrastructure and build out of separate new infrastructure for that, to transport that mixes throughout Poland and Europe, and enabling transport there through the existing infrastructure. So, and the development of that system in Poland, which we treat as an opportunity rather than a threat. What do we actually do? Looking at Europe, this is the European hydrogen backbone, which is a obvious platform for collaboration. Mr. Sieradzki, who has left us by now, is responsible for that, coordinating that. Recently, we've signed a memorandum between Poland, Romania, Slovakia, and Hungary on that. Memorandum of understanding signed on that. On the domestic level, we signed an agreement, sector-wide agreement, for development of that hydrogen sector in Poland. And we're working on the Polish strategy, hydrogen strategy, consulting and expanding that. Now, looking at the technical side of this, we've even in September started a technical dialogue with designers, producers and suppliers of solutions, be it in the pipeline or the actual plant. We're running technical analyses, looking at specific projects, and we already have a number of such projects, and we continue receiving inquiries on this. So from our perspective, this is taking off from our perspective. So we are no longer thinking about ideas and concessions and so on, but we are working on specific solutions for specific projects, such as mixes, hydrogen mixes, and putting them into the gas system. If we talk about the European hydrogen backbone, this is a system of building a set of pipelines. All of Europe has been working on this. There are dedicated funds under the European funds. Many players are taking part in this, and we as GAZ-System are also making effort to involve ourselves into this. And the objective here is to use to the fullest the opportunities being offered by existing and new infrastructure for transfer of or transmission of hydrogen.
Time flies, so I'm going to try to speed up now when it comes to the use of existing network for hydrogen transfer. Our R&D's department has conducted such an exercise, and plenty of existing pipelines have been assessed at the angle of possibilities of introducing to our gas system hydrogen additions. And here on the map we can see more or less how it looks like. It's not something we look at through pink glasses, but we still have chances. Of course, it requires more in-depth research. Here we only look at the pipeline, and there is also the scope of the infrastructure. So it's much more than just a pipeline. Up till 2024, we will create a space for R&Ds. And this year, most likely, or at the beginning of the next year, we are going to create a study of a feasibility study for a pipeline system, which I mentioned before. It is about adding hydrogen. Another scope is biomethane, and here, looking at the number of inquiries in the last time regarding biomethane connections to the network, we can see that this market is becoming more and more interesting. Today morning, I've noticed that there is a small mistake on the slide. There should be pieces and not megawatts in one of the spots here. But the number of biogas plants as of 2016 has been more or less stable. From my experience, I know that up till now, biogas plants that were created were simply burning the whole biogas, and they were cogenerating, they were converting it into electricity, and now with the prices of gas, the market is becoming very attractive and it's changing drastically. We know that there are actors and there are colleagues in the room today who represent biogas business, inter alia our partner Verbio from Germany, which is planning to build big installations of biogas. Before the installations which were created in Poland, up till now it's around 600 biogas plants, including 131 rural biogas stations. Right now we are planning to build much bigger installations, and it seems that it is very attractive when we take a look at the price of gas. This map shows a potential of Poland when it comes to biomethane production. We also have an information from the market that Polish miners announced plans for construction of biogas plants and production at the level of 4 billion cubic meters. Of course, in our forecasts, we also see that there is a chance and a threat at the same time, because if biogas is going to be in the network of ours or will be distributed, then, well, natural gas, regardless, we try it rather as a chance for development than a threat. So we are having an intense cooperation with our clients, and we encourage to join into our network. Of course, there is an option of use. There is more and more of those options. There is chemical industry. It gains meaning in situation of threat when it comes to supply and big prices of natural gas on the other hand. So it makes customers independent from the prices and direction. So, of course, there are clear benefits: reduction of emissions, clean environment, improvement of waste management, and of course, increase in national production. Assuming that today we have production between 3 to 4 billion, then additional 4 makes a real difference. Well, there are of course limitations when it comes to investments that are required for construction of a pipeline, questions related to the adaptation of pressures, etc. So the business models which we see today are only visible on the market. So it is about introducing biomethane to our system, to our network, to distribution system. Of course, there's a possibility of connecting a biogas plant directly to the customer, and bio-LNG, which is a possibility of swapping with swaps. So the forecast when it comes to the upcoming events related to gas year 2022-2023. Of course, there is a calendar of auctions. So when it comes to the first quarter of the gas year, you've obtained such a calendar in your materials. And it is going to be quarterly on 7th of November. So it is 25th of October, 29th of November, 27th of December. And as our experienced clients are acting, I know that you know very well the dates and when you have to act. And of course, what I said in my previous presentation, which is research on client satisfaction. We are going to start the process, and I welcome you very warmly. I encourage you to participate. We really care about your opinion. For us, it is very important. It is very developing. It generates ideas, and we really care about your participation in the research. And of course, I encourage you once again to take part in the practical webinars which we are organizing. I encourage you to submit your ideas, your expectations, because it also generates initiatives on our side. When we see that there is a need for information in a precise scope, then it is a clear feedback to us, and we think that it is a very good form of presentation, and we can come back to this later on. Well, thank you very much for your kind attention. Those are the most important challenges for the year. Yes, yes, indeed. Thank you, Mr. Director, once again.
Krótkie pytanie, czy są pytania, czy może chcielibyście Państwo...
A short question. Do you have questions? Is there something you would like to ask? Yes, we invite you to use the mic.
Dobry, Radosław Rosiński. Czuję ogromną presję związaną z...
I feel a pressure related to the lunch that we were supposed to begin at 3 p.m., but I would like to ask you still whether, because of the investments which up till now were succeeding so much, is there a chance, and if yes, then how big the chance is to speed up certain points of 10-year national plan, especially those which cause conditions for obtaining constant gas deliveries rather than interrupted, because there is plenty of the second type. Of course, we are aware of it, and we know it very well because we communicate with you and we know what we should speed up. And please believe me, our investment services are doing all we can to finalize the investments as soon as possible. Sometimes we have no influence over it because administrative procedure is taking time. Choosing subcontractors is also a challenge. There are always possibilities, and we are using the experiences which we've gained during the big investment programs. I can tell you with satisfaction that GAZ-SYSTEM is one of the subjects which is delivering projects on time. And of course, we are going to act and do all possible to shorten the terms and speed them up. But there is plenty of elements that are outside of our, not within our influence. So we understand it. Thank you very much for the answer, Mr. Director. Do you have any other questions? I see no questions. So thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you for familiarizing us with the topic.
Bardzo Państwu dziękujemy za obecność dzisiaj, zarówno tutaj na sali, jak i przed ekranami, za śledzenie naszej transmisji. Mam nadzieję, że spełniliśmy Państwa oczekiwania co do programu tej konferencji.
We hope we've provided you all you needed. Should you have any further questions, please reach out to us. We are at your disposal. And I would like to let you know that just like with all the other editions of GAZ-SYSTEM Forum, all the materials and presentations from today's meeting will be shared on our website. And I would like to thank very much to everyone engaged in organizing this undertaking, our colleagues from all the departments that took part in the organization. Thank you very much. Yes, they all deserve a round of applause. And thank you. See you on the next workshops. Right now, we invite you to the lunch, which is going to be served at the restaurant by the reception. It is the place which has a view to the Palace of Culture. Thank you very much once again.